Let's talk about change fatigue, but in an energy sense. So change fatigue happens when there is too much change, constant change, and you don't have that stability. So employees or people's nervous systems kind of go in protection mode, and you start to see some of these stress and burnout patterns begin. What you do in change fatigue is you start to find stability in the situation. You start to apply tools, concepts, and meet them where they're at to guide them through change. But one concept within this I want to talk about is the energy that you can begin to delegate out in certain projects and certain change so that you don't lose people, so you don't burn people out in the process. I think sometimes in change, we just want a very specific instructional book, right? Steps 1, 2, and 3, but people are complex and change can be complex. I come from 2 decades in manufacturing. The best laid plans still don't go as you planned. So you have to be able to adapt. And the more you can lean into people's natural energy, the longer and sustainable the projects and the process will be. Because people don't resist change just because they want to be a problem. It's because they're getting exhausted through the process. So the more that you can feed the energy, the more sustainable change can be. Let's go through a few things that you can do, feed the energy for each type of work style. Now, as we get into this, think about how you're managing change. You're usually managing tasks, you're managing the workload, but who's managing the people? Who's managing the energy? And that's where you can lean into disc work styles, because each disc work style has a natural energy to it. And if you feed that need, they're less likely to resist the change and actually will get excited to do it. Let's start with these, our dominants. These are our reds. And what they're looking for is results and outcomes. They're looking for fast paced, let's get it done. So when you have change initiatives that go on way too long, or you're not seeing visual action happen, this is where red will begin to resist change. They're getting frustrated with it because there's a lot to get done and things aren't getting done fast enough. Or there are things that need to take place and now you're over deadline, you're over budget, you don't have the right people in place, and they're getting frustrated because they want the win, they want the result. So if you see D's resisting change, it's not that they don't want to change, it's that there's missing pieces and they see that they're not going to hit the mark, they're not going to get the win. Let's look at yellows. Yellows are influence, our eyes. And they're looking for more of that social connection, everyone having a voice. So they get exhausted when they start seeing other people get frustrated, when they see other people's voices shut down, when people who are affected by the change weren't considered when rolling out the change or the execution of it. They want people to have opinions and be part of the process. They like the collaboration of it. The other thing with eyes is they like to be part of the idea process. They love that shiny object of change. So having them at the front end of kind of the discovery, exploration of where to move forward, they're going to get super excited about it. They're not going to get excited getting stuck at the end of the minutia of creating policies and procedures and the methodical, like, repeatable processes. They don't really thrive on that. Here's a great example where D's and I's, our fast-paced movers, are going to get bogged down. Contract language, long training manuals, creating standard operating procedures after the change. These are they don't thrive there. They're like, check, let's get off the list, let's get results, let's get people moving, let's see some action. So their energy is not in that like very detailed methodical process side, but their energy is definitely on the discovery, exploration, client involvement, people side. So you can already probably see where you may have been delegating out and change or forcing change to certain work styles where the energy was a mismatch. Now, certainly this is work, right? So we have to do things that we don't want to do. But when there is time and space, or you're going through a very large or long-term change, it is important to consider people's energy level so that you not only find stability where you can, but you can sustain the energy through the process. So D's and I's want a little bit more fast pace. D's want the result, the win, and I's want more of that social connection, everyone have a voice, get them in the idea process. Now let's move to S's. These are our greens, and they're looking for the stability. If I can think of the work style out of the four that's looking for the most stability, it's our S's, our supportives, because they're always looking at how is the team reacting to this change. They're looking at the gaps in systems and processes because they want repeatability. So the more that you change, the more unstable their environment, their process, their systems get. So when S's are resisting change, which they will be the most resistive to change, you want to focus on the stability parts of the areas that aren't changing, or recognizing that, hey, our systems aren't changing, just a few steps within our procedure or our process are changing. Splitting it up to micro chunks that shows it's not as big as it seems is going to help them work through change. Now, S's are very good at seeing the gaps that are going to pop up. So this is, again, where D's and I's could be at the front part of the change process. And now S's step in and start seeing the gaps, the discrepancies, and they can begin to fix and improve those so that your team has good process flow. It's got good repeatability. There's nice quality steps all the way to the customer so you don't miss the mark, because they care at high value about the steps, the process, the client quality, and they want it to be repeatable. So they're going to do excellent in that portion of the project. Again, that's going to help them create stability. So if they knew that at the beginning of the change project, that's where their value is, that's where they're going to participate in it, they're going to get excited a little bit more about the change and what is to come, because they're going to be part of creating the stability in the process. Now, another little bit more methodical work style, similar to the S, is compliance. These are our blues. And these high C work styles are looking for the data, the details, de-risking the situation. So say you have a change initiative that's going to go on over the next year. That's kind of risky. A lot can happen in 1 year time frame. What is going to be plan B? What is going to be plan C? What does the timelines look like? So for high C's, project timelines like Gantt charts are going to be super important, because they know what's next. They know what's coming. They know the owners, who to go to for what. They know the informational pieces of the change. And so through that information flow, the data and details, you're actually creating stability for high C's. Again, they're not resisting change because they don't want to change. They definitely have a slow change curve, just like S's. It's just they need data, details, information to keep moving forward. So the more clarity you can bring to the steps through the change process and where you are in those steps, the timelines of those steps, the prediction of those steps, is going to help the flow of energy for C's. Now, where C's are going to thrive in your change is being the ones to be able to dig into the research, the data, the details. They work great with S's to create the standard operating procedures, to create the process flow in your system, to make sure that we're hitting the quality mark, because that's a very low risk in the future for them. And the more you can get them involved with that quality process, the more buy-in you're going to get with this change. The biggest mistake I see in companies as they address change in the changing environment that we're in is that they're just managing the change and they're not managing people, because all these patterns either feed the energy or drains it.